Hello and welcome to Wildcard MTG and another installment of 5 EDH cards that are budget and or not known about from old sets of Magic's history. Oh man, and today we're going to the best Magic set in existence. That's right, we're talking Fallen Empires. No, I'm kidding. This is probably one of the worst sets. In fact, even trying to find 5 cards was kind of rough, I'm not gonna lie. But there are some kind of cool cards in here. But, you know, besides the usual cards that everybody knows from the set, like Rainbow Veil and all that, not a lot of good cards. This is probably one of the worst sets in Magic's history, unfortunately. But I did still find 5 cards, so let's go through them and let's see what we got here. First up, Tidal Flats, a 1 blue enchantment that says, "Hey, blue, blue. All your creatures that are blocking any non-flying creatures gain first strike until end of turn. The attacking player may pay 1 for each attacking creature to prevent Tidal Flats from giving that creature's blocker first strike." So this card's really interesting in the fact that it gives blue first strike, which is something blue does not ever get. And you only have to pay 2 mana for it, and it taxes the attacker to not give them first strike. So really an interesting way to give your stuff first strike and tax the player at the same time. Now, if obviously they're attacking you and they have a bunch of mana open, this card probably isn't going to do anything because they're just going to pay 1 for each of your creatures and boom. But if they played a bunch of stuff in their main phase and they go to the attack phase and they only have like 1 or 2 mana open, it's still probably worth it to do this, especially more than likely they're going to take away first strike from your biggest creatures that are blocking and do it that way. But it's an interesting card, and for 1 blue, I mean, you can't go wrong. And I mean, the card's only 14 cents, so, you know, if you're in an Enchantress deck, this might be cool to try out. And the other thing is it is non-flying creatures, so keep that in mind as well. But that's not really a big deal. And you know, I know there's a bunch of flying creatures out there, but most decks I run into, yeah, it wouldn't really make a difference. So interesting card. That's the first one up here. Let's look at the next one. And the next card up is Soul Exchange. It is 2 black for sorcery. It says sack a creature, but remove it from the game instead of putting it into your graveyard, so it gets exiled. Take a creature from your graveyard and put it directly into play as though it were just summoned. Put a +2/+2 counter on this creature if the sacrificed creature was a Thrall. That last part's not really relevant unless you're playing a Thrall deck, which there are Thrall decks out there, so in this instance, this card would be awesome. But even just the rate of this card, yeah, it's a sorcery, but paying 2 black to sack a creature, and it could be a token. You can sack a token to get your big monster out of your graveyard back to the battlefield for 2 black. I mean, that's such an insane rate. That's a great rate. And say that you had just like a Shieldred or something in your graveyard, and you have like a little 1/1, or let's just say you have a Thrall. Let's just say you have a 0/1 Thrall token out. You sack that Thrall. You exile it, which doesn't really matter. You get your Shieldred back, and it now has +2/+2 on top of that. For 2 black mana, yeah, it's a sorcery, but I don't think that really matters when the rate is so good on just being able to do that. And I mean, the card's 62 cents. It's never been reprinted outside of Fallen Empires. And I think for that price and what it does, pretty good card. I would definitely look into using this into like a Aristocrats kind of deck. Pretty good card. All right, next up here, you know, unfortunately, I hate including reserve list cards on these lists because they are kind of expensive and they can get expensive. But unfortunately, it's the only other like decent card I could find in the set, and that is Conchhorn. It's a 2 mana artifact, and it says pay 1, sack Conchhorn, draw 2 cards, and put any 1 card from your hand back on top of your library. So it's a brainstorm. And it's also like Brainstone. So yes, you know, Brainstone is made. It does the same thing. But it's still a good effect. I mean, having multiple effects like this where you're drawing cards and putting ones you don't need back on top of your library, and for one, basically 3 mana, yeah, man, it's almost $4, and that's because it's on the reserve list, but it's the only other, like, playable card, one of the only other playable cards in this set, so I had to include it. If it's out of your budget for $4, you know, I get it. But for me, I'd pay $4 for this. Like, why not? Especially if I was playing like an artifact heavy deck too. This would be pretty good in there in order to like top deck, manipulate stuff and everything like that. Like if you have a Mystic Forge out and things like that. So, pretty cool card. Unfortunately, it is on the reserve list. And next up, we have Delif's Cone. It is a 0 mana artifact. It says tap, sacrifice Delif's Cone. If target creature you control attacks and is not blocked, you may choose to gain its power in life. If you do so, it deals no damage to opponent this turn. So in a life gain deck, you're basically using this to trade off damage for life, which could be a good thing. And yeah, you have to sacrifice Delif's Cone to do it once, but I mean, let's just say for Magical Christmas Land, you have like a 10/10 you're attacking with, but it doesn't have lifelink for some reason. Maybe you want to, you know, gain that 10 life, or maybe like a Evara deck. You know, you switch your toughness and life with her ability, and, you know, she's now like a 33 or whatever, and you're like, huh, well, I think I'll just sacrifice Delif's Cone, gain 33 life, and then she will deal no damage. But, I mean, Evara has lifelink, so... But still, the case in point still rests is that you could still gain that life off of using this. And for a 0 mana artifact, pretty good. It's only 24 cents, not on the reserve list. So, again, I think just an interesting card. It could be used for some shenanigans for sure. And if you were doing like a life gain artifact deck, I mean, holy crap, this thing would be pretty good. That is that card. Let's move on to the last card. And again, unfortunately, another reserve list card, and that is Implements of Sacrifice. It's a 2 mana artifact. This is pay 1 tap, sacrifice Implements of Sacrifice, add 2 mana of any one color. So getting that 2 mana ramp for a monocolor deck is pretty good. It's kind of like a Jeweled Lotus, except you gotta basically pay 3 mana overall. It's a fixed Jeweled Lotus, let's just say that. But regardless, you know, ramping that much mana, and especially in an artifact deck, I've used this in Joyra a couple times just to ramp her out pretty early, just to get that extra mana, and it does its job. I mean, you know, getting that 2 mana early is such a good thing. And despite it being on the reserve list, it's only 90 cents, so it's still pretty cheap. It's a good utility artifact for ramping, and I definitely think this card deserves more play than it gets just for that. You know, it could even be like another Soul Ring for the most part, or an Arcane Signet, something like that. You know, I think the paying 2 and then 1 isn't really as big of a deal as a lot of players might think it is, so that's why I think it's a little underrated. So that was all the cards I could find from Fallen Empires. I couldn't even find a bonus card. There just was, you know, outside of stuff that people already know from Fallen Empires, it just wasn't worth it to go over cards that people already really know. And yeah, I could only find 5 cards, so that's everything from Fallen Empires that I could find. The best set in Magic's history. And so yeah, pretty short one today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching Wildcard MTG. If you like these, I also do deck techs. You can check those out on the channel. Please hit like and subscribe if you enjoy what I'm doing. And also let me know if there's any commanders you want to see me build. I would love to do that. And we'll see you on the next one.